Hello and welcome to the WMA Podcast, Episode 8 of Season 9. I'm your host, Brandon Klump. Today we're thrilled to have Mike Robinson join us. Mike is a friend of Professor Schiestl, the director of our wealth management minor at Michigan State University. They previously worked together in the banking side of the industry. Mike holds his Certified Financial Planner designation and earned his undergraduate degree from Eastern Michigan University. He furthered his education with a master's in estate and financial planning from the College of Financial Planning. Mike served as the former director of wealth management at Huntington Bank, where he was the executive vice president for around 12 years. Prior to that, Mike spent the beginning of his career at JP Morgan, where he spent 27 years in various managerial positions. In today's episode, we discussed what inspired Mike to pursue a career in wealth management, a timeline of his career and the different roles he held, his experience on the banking side of wealth management and why he chose this path, and the significance of aligning with a company's culture and values. And finally, valuable advice for students seeking internships or full-time job opportunities. Hope you enjoy. Hey, Mike, thanks for coming on the WMA podcast.
Oh, happy to be here, Brandon. Thank you for having me.
So, for starters, I wanted to first ask you, what encouraged you to get into the wealth management industry?
Well, back when I first graduated college, I started working at a bank. At the time, it was National Bank of Detroit, which became Bank One, which then became JP Morgan Chase. And I was working out in the branches, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my career. I was in my early 20s. And as people came in, I realized that I was only helping them with a very small sliver of their financial world, and that was their everyday banking, their checking and savings and credit cards and things like that. And I wanted to help them more. And it just, I always felt like I wanted more knowledge. And so that's when I joined the wealth management business inside of the bank. And I also went back and got my master's in estate and financial planning and became a CFP. And that was 25 plus years ago. And most recently, and we can go into any depth you want to, but I retired as the head of wealth for Huntington Bank. And that through a long career of interacting with clients and then managing advisors that interacted with clients. And after a 39-year career since I graduated college, I just recently retired. And so happy to be here with you, Brandon. But that's what kind of got me interested, is I wanted to help clients with more sophisticated financial decisions that they would have in their lives. And I was only scratching the surface, but it was an important beginning, but I was only scratching the surface out working in a bank branch.
Right. So, well, congrats on the career. And if you want to go a little bit more into kind of the roles you played, I know you just kind of said some of them, but kind of where you started and then what was most of your career doing, going a little bit more into that.
Well, and the wealth management business is very broad. There's a lot of ways to function inside of the business. I happen to work inside of a bank, and so I can give great detail on that, but I know others work inside of a brokerage firm or inside of an RIA, registered investment advisor, or even inside of an insurance company. And all of those industries attempt to help people with their financial situation. Inside of the bank, I feel like we had a little bit of an advantage over some of the other industry competitors because we could do it all. Literally, we could do the deposit side, the lending side, the trust side, which we can talk about, true fiduciary powers granted by the Federal Reserve, as well as the investment management side. And we owned at Huntington, we owned a insurance agency. So we could literally help someone with everything. and we weren't missing any arrows in the quiver. So I'm partial, of course, because that's where I spent my career, was on the banking side and inside of a bank. People will sometimes say, well, were you a banker? Well, not really. It was a lot more of being a financial advisor. And a couple of the roles I had early in my career were I was a private banker, where I helped client households primarily with their deposit needs and their lending needs on a little bit more sophisticated level. Many of them might have LLCs, or they have small businesses, and they have unique lending collateral pools and things like that. And so I had a set of clients that was my primary duty. That was my first job in the wealth management industry after I left the branches. But then it was during that job that I studied at night and got my CFP. And I know from what Brandon has told me, many of you will come out of this program with the academic prep necessary to sit for your CFP. I can't encourage you enough to go ahead and do it. It's a big test. Do it while you're young, smart, and in study mode, because that's I did it, 9 years after I graduated, and tried to take all that time out of my family at the time. And so do it early. It's a real terrific thing that the program that you're in has that ability. But after I left being a private banker, I became a trust officer inside of the bank. And trust officers are unique to banking. When a high net worth client does their estate plan, and there's no one in their family that's really capable or has the knowledge to handle their wishes after they die, they create trusts, and they will hire banks to be a fiduciary and to interpret the trust and to ensure that assets are delivered the way that they want them. And many times there'll be trusts that will go on for dozens and dozens of years, or even the lifetime of their children. And that's what banks do. So I had a book of clients that truly that truly was immersive in the trust industry. And those two roles gave me a perspective of the investment and trust side of the world, because many of those clients also had us help them with their investment management needs while they were alive, and then also the banking side. And shortly after that, I went into leadership and management and started managing folks that were private bankers and trust folks, and was blessed in a career that allowed me to take on and wear a number of different hats throughout the career. But having that fundamental knowledge of banking plus investment plus trust, because that's the estate planning side, really helps an advisor be well-rounded. And in a bank, which was the channel I was in, as I said, I could do all of that. And that's that I thought was a real cool thing.
Right. Great. That's great. And then on that note of this was going to be one of my questions, but we touched on it, was kind of how does banks differ from RIAs, and you touched on what the banking side. Is there any differences in the types of clients who are coming to banks as opposed to who would rather work for or have an RIA do their investments and their estate planning? Is there a difference there?
The capabilities are remarkably similar. And so it really comes down to trust and finding an advisor that you can trust as a client that has worked their entire life to accumulate assets, or is even in the process of accumulating assets. Finding an advisor that you can trust, where that advisor is in it for the long haul with the client, and not for some short-term transaction that's going to pay them a commission. And that's what, quite frankly, no matter how much in assets you have, clients are worried about is, are they dealing with someone who's just trying to make a commission on a transaction, or are they dealing with someone who really wants to get to know their family, their financial goals, their financial situations, what's unique? There are no two families alike, and no two situations alike. That's what makes this industry so interesting, is that you realize a number of things around family dynamics and how important family dynamics are. And you may have, as a financial advisor, dozens, maybe even over 100 different families that you deal with, and each one, some are dysfunctional. Doesn't matter how much money they have, they're dysfunctional. And you as an advisor have to help whomever has hired you to navigate their situation. And I found that as a career very rewarding. It's more than just the financial rewards. And in our industry, the financial rewards can be significant, but the advisors that really make it have figured out that they need a combination of two things. They need to have terrific diagnostic skills, meaning can talk to the clients, really understand what they're getting at, and fulfill what the client is looking to do, or advise them on how to fulfill whatever their goals are. That's number one. Number two is they have to have strong technical knowledge. A client will see through somebody who's just a good salesperson or a good personality. They want someone who knows the rules and the regulations and how to apply those to their particular situation. And that's the most important. And when you can put together those two things, technical knowledge, and that's what the CFP will give you, technical knowledge and the bedside manner, if you will, and the ability to develop trusting relationships, you'll be a successful financial advisor and have clients for decades. There were people that were on my team before I retired that had clients for decades. They had been invited to weddings and bar mitzvahs and unfortunately funerals, and it's a lifelong attachment. And so for people who are starting out, the hard part is someone who's starting out just graduating college. How do you develop those, right? That's 20 years down the road. So you have to get with a firm that provides opportunities for learning and for mentorship, so that you can learn those things and learn from other people who are more senior. And that's my take. I know I expanded a little more on that, Brandon, and maybe what you wanted, but that to me is, and now I can compare and contrast RIAs and banks and insurance companies and brokerage firms all day long. I'm a little biased to the bank, as I said earlier. Each of those can provide a fulfilling career. Otherwise, the industry itself wouldn't exist. So, that's my take on that.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then going back to the management positions you fulfilled in your career and whatnot, to kind of start the conversation, did you always see yourself, did you see yourself being in management positions when you were in college?
That's a great question. I think yes. And, our industry is, when I was in college, I went to Eastern Michigan University, and I'm from Southeast Michigan. And I was very involved in student activities and in leadership roles in student organizations while I was doing my undergrad. And and was officers of some of those organizations. And so if you have a bent like that, the starting off in the financial industry and then moving to a management role, it was kind of natural for me. I knew I wanted to lead people. I knew I had an ability to develop followership, and I don't mean that to sound bad. It just, there's a natural approach that if you can connect with people. And in the financial services industry, it's really unique because people can get to a certain point in their career and it's almost like there's a fork in the road. Do they decide to go a leadership route, or do they decide to stay in the client route and have a client book of business for their whole career? And in a lot of industries, the only way to get ahead is to go into management, right? That's the management makes all the money and has all the benefits. In our industry, that's not the case. There were a number of, I had a fairly significant leadership job, but there were a number of advisors that made more money than me because they had tremendous practices with clients. And so at some point, it's about what you want to do and what you feel like you're good at and where you want to get up every morning. And I thought that I could help other advisors in their careers, and had that little bit. My parents were both teachers, so I had that little bit of a teaching approach to things, and that's why I took the leadership route. But many people have long, fulfilling careers because it's so diverse what you're doing every day with your client base, and truly you get a lot of satisfaction out of helping them. And so either one of those paths are there, and but you almost always start before the fork in the road with clients, because I had books of business with clients. I knew what it was like to manage clients, to have clients upset when the market drops, how to soothe them and help them feel better. And it's hard to lead people unless you've actually been there and done that. And so, there's early on in a career, it's about getting into something, getting client experiences, sitting at those client meetings, preparing for the client meetings, handling the post-client meeting follow-ups, and all of those things are learning that would someday allow you to either take whichever direction you wanted to at the fork in the road.
Right. Yeah, great. Can you go into the importance of finding a job with a good or a company culture and people that mesh well with you?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. The good news about the industry for all of you is that there are more financial advisors retiring every week than new people coming into the industry. And that's in all the journals and the forums and things that I'm part of and the reading around the industry that I stay current with. It's a problem in the industry is enough young people are not going into the financial advisory part of the industry in any of those careers that so it's a good time. So if you're truly junior, senior, and you're thinking about, I know at MSU, you're going to come out with a minor in wealth management. And if you're truly thinking about this as a career, there will be opportunities out there, and there will be jobs for you to come in and to interview for, and do that. That I would say there are certain jobs and to be careful of, and it's hard to say this because it's the industry I'm in, but what you want to look for is a role that, sometimes they'll call them analysts or associates, or I guess trainee isn't used that much anymore, but where you're going to come in and you're going to earn a salary, you're going to help on a team. You're going to be a junior person learning and supporting more senior advisors with their client base. And that could go on for 2 or 3 years. And if you are interviewing and they say, sure, we're going to give you a salary for the first 3 months, and then you're going to go to commission only, and you're going to need to call all these people, to make so many calls every week, and, call your parents' Christmas card list to try to sell them something. You want to stay away from that. That's the alter ego part of the industry. And those companies that are doing that are basically, what they're saying is, we're going to hire 10 of you. One of you will succeed. We don't care about the other 9. We're just trying to find that 1 out of 10 person that has got enough motivation to make all those cold calls. And you don't want that. That's not the way to enter our industry. The way to enter our industry is to look for companies that hire younger people into a program, and they are able to articulate, here's your path. We would lay out to college seniors, and quite frankly, Huntington recruits at Michigan State. We would lay out a path for the first 5 years. Of here's what your first 5 years looks like. And quite frankly, we really didn't turn young people loose on actual clients by themselves for 4 or 5 years, because they we also have to take care of the client and all. So one of the best ways to get a job after school is that summer between your junior and senior year. And I know we had a program where we would recruit interns for the summer, and that internship is basically a 6 or an 8 week interview, because we would bring the interns in and treat them just like we would in their first 6 months on the job and with their team. And it does 2 things. It's an interview both ways. If you can get an internship, you're interviewing both ways. They're interviewing you to see what kind of a worker are you, what are the skills you have, but then you're also interviewing the company, and you're there to say, would I want to work here for the next 5, 10 plus years, right? And so internships between sophomore, junior year, and definitely junior, senior year, a lot of the institutions will say, okay, before your senior year, it's August, September. They're putting job offers out for the following May or June when somebody graduates. And wouldn't it be nice to know, as you go through your senior year, as long as you don't get kicked out of school or get all E's or whatever, fail classes, that you've got a job. You just have to finish out. That's the importance of that summer between your junior and senior year. And by really looking at the jobs for internships in those summer months during school. And the best scenario, if you're a freshman or you're someone just starting down this path, is to be able to get 2 or 3 of those different internships throughout the 3, your 3 summers. You can then try an RIA. You can try a bank program. You could try a life insurance company. You can try a brokerage house. And because of what's happening in the industry, there are a lot of advisors out there that are in their mid to late 50s, and they're looking to retire, and they know that they need a junior person to come on board to maybe help with their book of business and to help them reduce their workload a little bit. So the opportunities are there in this wealth management space. I have a son that's in this industry that followed through with this, and his internship turned out to be a job at an RIA, and he worked there for a number of years, and now he works for a bank, and so it's there are opportunities for people that are coming out with what's great, I think, about the MSU program is my understanding is you guys have a major in something else, but then a minor in wealth management, and you're ready to take the CFP. And that's a real advantage. You sit in an interview for one of those programs and you either have your CFP or you're going to be taking it. That's a significant differentiator. Is in your 20s to have your CFP. That's a significant differentiator, and you should all take full advantage of it.
Right. And just leading on that for, the younger audience listening, I think when I started in college, this industry can be overwhelming. There's a lot, and I know for me, and I'm sure other students, you feel like, you need to know a whole bunch before you can get opportunities. But, like you said, there's a lot of opportunities as long as you're curious and you just want to learn this stuff and you keep learning. It's not, you can start as early as, the curiosity really begins and you start getting yourself in front of people. So
no, you're 100% right, Brandon. When I was going through my CFP courses, I was already working at the bank, and I had a book of clients, and I would learn something, and then I would say, well, geez, I need to talk to this client about this. And before I learned it, I didn't even know I needed to talk to the client about that. And the confidence, once you've done the academic prep, and then you do the prep necessary for the test. The test is a big test, right? It's not a pushover test. You got to really know your stuff. I guarantee you, when you sit in a meeting, you are going to know more things than that client does. And the most confident you'll ever be is the week after your test, because one, the test will be behind you, and two, you will know everything that you need to help a client. And I remember that confidence level when I would go into it. It changed how I felt in client meetings by getting that CFP. And it never really goes away, because while some of the little things dull around the edges over the years, you have to take continuing ed to keep it sharp. And but there's you have a sense of, when someone's talking, what is it that they're talking about? And so that's that technical side that I mentioned, is that advisors who continue to have knowledge and grow their technical skills and have a curiosity, like you said, will do well. They will do well. It's not a job, it's a lifelong learning job, and continuously learning around so many things that are unique to clients. That's the financial planning part of the CFP is what really I think, because that's so personalized to an individual client household. Right. But yeah, you're right on that, Brandon.
And that's an important note you made earlier too, that I just want to reiterate is no two client is alike. This isn't an industry where it's like, where it's a supply chain and we're trying to make it super efficient amongst my 100 clients, right? You're going to have hiccups on every client, something new, and it's important, through my internship, my first year, sometimes it's hard to be like, wow, all these people they're individual families, right? Sure, you have work on 100 clients that day, but you still have to treat them like they're their own. So I think that's important too.
It really is. And people sometimes think that money brings happiness. It doesn't always bring happiness. It can come with its own set of issues in very high net worth clients. And there are no two. If you talk with even if you talk with Steve Schiestel, I know he's major part of your program. I'm sure he has stories. We all have stories that some are amazingly good stories to tell, and some are unfortunately sad stories, and that that have occurred in our career while helping people. And I've sometimes said to advisors as I would be coaching them and is we're the financial equivalent of the medical doctor. Is it's our job to properly diagnose and to keep people healthy financially. And the if you think about people as they gain wealth, many times there's the two most important things is their health and their wealth. And and that's our job in this industry is to help with that very important piece. And many times people pay more attention to their wealth than their health, unfortunately. But that's to me, that's the importance I think of as people enter this industry. That's how important it really is to and there's nothing more satisfying than leaving a client meeting and that client has just looked to you and said, thank you. I don't know what we would do without you. And there's no commission that takes the place of that. That's a internal payment of feeling good about helping others. And if you don't want to help others, this isn't the industry for you. This is one that you want to be able to help people and have. And if you can elicit that reaction out of your clients, you'll be wildly successful. And that's what I think is cool about this industry.
Great. I just have one last question about going back to a lot of us are trying to get internships and a lot of us are also trying to get full-time positions. So do you have any interview advice?
Well, I do. And it's more general prep interview, but I would I used to, in my earlier days, I taught an interviewing class within the bank for people who are trying to job post within the bank. And one of the things that I would say before in your prep for an interview is sit down with a pad of paper and as a young person, either in college or coming out of college, and the first, there's really 3 Roman numerals on that pad of paper. The first Roman numeral is your academics. Here are my majors, and here's my major, minor, my grade point, and then more importantly, here's why. And just write down bullet points. Like if you were a newscaster and you were to say, they're going to say, well, why did you go into marketing? Why did you go into management? Think of around your academics, every question that you think somebody could ask, and then just jot that bullet point down. Then go to Roman numeral 2. Roman numeral 2 is any school activities, leadership roles, extracurriculars while you're in school, clubs you're part of, groups you're part of, even if it's a social fraternity, but you've got an officer position and any of those things, and jot those same things down of what did this give me by being in this group or by me being the treasurer of the group or the president of the group. Here are the leadership skills it gave me. Then the third is any work background that you've had going through school, internships, what did this one give me? What did I learn from this internship? And after you've done that prep, it should take about a half an hour to truly do that prep. And you've got it jotted down on a pad of paper. What you just created is your brochure for yourself. That is, and you'll be amazed because you wrote it down, how you will tailor your answers back to the things that you jotted down on this. And then the final prep is on another sheet, try to answer, you can look up the 5 toughest interview questions, right? And then jot down some things. Well, what do you want to do in 5 years? Or what's been your biggest mistake? What's been the thing, what have people said you do well and you don't do well? Those are the standards, right? Just jot a few bullet points down for each of those 5 tough. Now, if they ask you a question out of the blue, you handle that by the seat of your pants, right? Now, picture the person that has prepped with those eight, Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth, which are the 5 tough questions, with a little bit by the seat of the pants, versus the person who goes into an interview and does the whole thing seat of the pants, right? Just kind of, I'm just going to roll with it, whatever they ask and all of that. I guarantee you 10 out of 10 times the person that does the prep is going to come across better than the person who doesn't. And once you do that prep, no matter what you're interviewing for, you're going to say the same things pretty much over and over again because it's your brochure, right? It's who you are. And that's how you want to prep for an internship interview or for a full-time interview afterwards. And I guarantee you that prep work, it'll make you less nervous. You'll be amazed. And I started every interview always with one question. And it didn't matter, senior people making a lot of money, very senior level veterans. Every interview I interview people, I started with one question. And I would say, Brandon, I'm not a hardcore interviewer. Just tell me the Brandon story. Just tell me the Brandon story. And you'd be amazed how many people weren't ready for that question. Now, if you did the prep I just talked about, you'd basically just say, well, let me tell you the Brandon story. Let me tell you about my academics. Let me tell you about my work. Let me tell you about my extracurriculars. And that's my story. And these are even not just college kids. These are senior people that weren't ready for a simple question like that.
Right.
And so if somebody gives you an open-ended question of, tell me about yourself, tell me your story, that's the best question you could ever have because you get to completely frame the answer. And if you've done the prep work before an interview, obviously you got to look, you got to be knowledgeable about the company you're interviewing with and all of that. So I left that aside for right now, but for the prep work for all of you. So that, I don't know if that's helpful, Brandon, but that's the way that I would suggest people get ready for intern interviews or, postgraduate interviews.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I think multiple listeners will write that down, take notes, and do it themselves. So, I think if you really want the position, there's a lot of anxiety that comes, but how you get over that anxiety is do what you just said. Just prepare. Right. And you don't have to say every bullet point that you jotted down. Right. But if you prepare, you'll say something and it might be different on the fly, but it's like it still comes together to your story and what
Right.
you know. So
Right.
just I can get anxious and I know a lot of other students do too, but as long as you prepare, when it starts, the meeting starts, things just flow and it's
exactly and you're exactly right. And have probably the fifth part is have a couple of questions that you prepare for ahead of time for that company. Right. When you're doing research on the company, so for example, if you're interviewing about a program, they may tell you all about their program and your one question was, tell me about your program. You're like, well, crap, I'm out of questions, right? They've already answered it. So listening while they're doing their description, really being present with the interviewer instead of trying to think of, oh my God, what's my next question? Just listen to what they say. And the best questions are following up on something that they said.
Right.
And those are the best questions. So just be present. Everybody will be fine. Usually those are half-hour interviews. They're fine. And everybody will be great. If you do that prep, everybody will be terrific.
Right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the WMA podcast.
Well, Brandon, it's my pleasure. I'd say to everybody, you're considering, by listening to this, it means you're considering a career in wealth management. And I would say it's fulfilling and it can provide a wonderful career and it's right there for you. Go ahead, take the bull by the horns and run with it. And all my best to all of you and Brandon, to you, thank you for the pleasure of being able to be on and the honor of being on your podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
If you enjoyed the discussion, please like and share the podcast on Apple and Spotify. The Spartan Journal podcast is part of Michigan State University's Wealth Management Association, a student organization whose goal is to inspire the next generation of financial advisors. The Spartan Journal news team releases a newsletter every Monday morning comprised of financial literacy and the week's market updates. Feel free to follow us on social media at msuwma and check out our website at msuwma.com. Anything heard on either the MSUWMA or Spartan Journal podcasts is for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice.